Excellent, excellent. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Midwest Mindset, everybody. Today we have a special guest. We keep trying to add some different guests, and today we have a special one for sure. My brother-in-law, Jay Pitonyak.
Hello.
Awesome. Little camera shy, but we'll get through that real quick. But so welcome to today's podcast. Of course, this is your first time to the Midwest Mindset. Have you listened to the podcast at all?
I have.
You have?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I love it. I love it.
Of course he's going to say that, right? Right. So specifically, what do you like about it?
Just think that you guys talk about relevant things that associate with, especially my age group and what the situation I'm in with fatherhood and
Yep.
where I am in my career and things like that. It just resonates, I think, with me.
For all of us middle-aged, right? Fathers. Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. Awesome. Well, and to keep kind of in lockstep with the theme of what we've always tried to do, talking about Midwest, growing up in the Midwest. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about your history with growing up in the state of Minnesota. Then we're going to talk a little bit about growth mindset. And then I'd love to kind of finish with a little bit of fatherhood.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
The father of three kids and obviously similar age. Shay and I went to school together. So that's where we're going to kind of go. You all right with that?
Works for me.
Awesome. So first and foremost, I'd love for the listener here that don't know you to tell us a little bit about, so you grew up where?
I grew up in Evelyn, Minnesota on the Iron Range.
On the Iron Range. Why is it called the Iron Range?
Because they make taconite pellets up there that are used to make steel. So the iron in the ground is where the economy comes from up there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And what's the movie again that was filmed up there? There's a couple of them.
There's a couple. What was North Country?
North Country. Okay.
Yeah.
But there was an older one, wasn't there?
North Country is the one about the mines, actually.
Yeah, okay.
And Charlize Theron was in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I knew there was
And then there was a hockey one recently called Hockey.
Oh, that's right. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was it like growing up on the range?
I mean, I loved it. I don't think I could live there now in where I'm in with my life, but growing up, I couldn't have asked for a better place to grow up. I mean, small town, you knew everybody,
Mhm.
you knew everybody's parents. You couldn't get away with anything. But it was small, I had a small, close group of friends. It's like you knew everyone in your high school, from 9th through 12th grade. So, it was one of those where you'd leave in the morning on a Saturday and you wouldn't come home till it was dark out. So,
Yeah.
very, family friendly, very just trusting environment. Didn't have to worry about much stuff up there.
Well, and we talked about that. Who is it? I think I heard it on another podcast. We were talking about what did they say? We grew up in that 12 o'clock or 12 hour window or whatever. 12-hour parenting, I think, is what it was referred to as. Whereas like, hey, you leave in the morning, make sure you're back before it's dark or something like that. Where you were in those 12 hours. Nobody really knew, but you always came back.
No cell phones,
right.
We're on our own, making our own mistakes and decisions.
Figured it out, right? Let's go make some bad decisions. Vince Vaughn. So you grew up in the range. You grew up playing hockey, doing a lot of different things. Can you expand on that a little bit? Yeah.
Grew up playing. My mom was big into trying everything, so I tried every sport out there, from hockey to gymnastics. I was in dance for 2 years until something gravitated towards me, and I ended up playing baseball my whole life and became kind of my passion. But tried everything, which I encourage my kids to do also. But I also worked my way through high school. I had 2 part-time jobs usually at all times, where I'd go to school after school or practice, go to work at the Holiday Inn, and worked as a dishwasher there for about 6 hours a night. Then I worked in the mall at like Radio Shack and retail type jobs like that. So always had at least a couple jobs going at all times, just to have spending money essentially. So yeah.
But your mom was always and you say mom because
my dad passed away when I was 6. So yeah, my mom raised 3 kids, well, 4 eventually.
Yep.
And so she was always busy. I mean, I never felt like I needed or I was at need for anything. We lived like, I would never have known that we didn't have that much growing up. I just always felt like we had enough. But when I was able to earn money, I think when I was 13 or 14, I got my first job and was just wanted that independence where I could have my own stuff coming in. So
Right, freedom.
Yeah.
Right, we talk about that a lot. And growing up, and that's what's so interesting. It's similar, even though yours was arranged. I was, a farm in central Minnesota. It was so interesting because there were always people that had like certain genes that we actually wouldn't be able to get if we went clothes shopping. But I never thought we were poor, really.
Right.
It was just funny. I don't know, Whereas now it seems like there's a greater distinction between the have and the have-nots, and I don't know. I guess, we always knew who were a little bit wealthier, but it was never a big deal.
We're all kind of the same. It was just like, nobody really, that wasn't even a thing on our radar back then. So
I guess I didn't feel that as much.
No,
I knew I wanted more. And to your point, we started jobs earlier and that type of thing if we wanted that financial freedom. But just different. Huh?
I didn't even know what that meant off the range. I mean, life off the range is, well, a lot of people now my age and newer are leaving the range, but I still have a lot of friends that work for the mines and have stayed up there and built their families. And one lives in the house he grew up with his family, so that he got from his parents. So so yeah, it's I loved growing up there, and it was just a great community and small town, and it's different. But like, you grew up on a farm, brought up on the range. Like all my friends' parents worked at the mine, so they worked hard, but it was shift work. So like sometimes my friends' dads would be sleeping during the day, so we couldn't be loud. We had to be quiet all day because they were working midnight shift, or and there was during the 80s a big recession and layoffs in there. So a lot of my friends' parents, they'd be working at gas stations or whatever they could to get by during that tough time up there. So you definitely saw a lot of economic changes over time, just because the iron ore industry was kind of ebbed and flowed there.
The fluctuation of it, right? Yeah. It's so interesting you say that, because we talk about sleeping. So my dad worked at the VA hospital for over 25 years, and he always made a little bit more money if you worked the night shift.
Yeah.
And I think it was like from 10 at night till 8 in the morning or something, like was his shift. So that was our home too. Like literally, like it's noon at the Tyson household. We had to be quiet because dad was sleeping.
Yeah.
So we always had to be outside, which was easy for us to do back then. So you grew up on the range. You tried a lot of different things, sports, kind of stuck with baseball. You mentioned, you referred to it a little bit, that a lot of your friends still live there and raise families and everything like that. What made you move away? What was the catalyst?
I don't think there was anything that made me. I just always knew I wanted to. Like, it was never a thought in my mind that I would stay there. Nothing against it. I just always knew that I wanted to move to the cities, as we called them down there. We called them the 612ers back up in Evelyn.
You did?
Yes, yeah.
Just straight out of 8 Mile, where everybody had a zip code or the prefix, right?
Yeah, we're 612ers now
in
the cities. So, but I just always knew that after college, I wanted to end up in the cities. Just that's where jobs were. I had no idea what my job would ever be. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I just knew it wasn't going to be there.
So you knew that you wanted to do more. You wanted to leave. What was, I guess the better question is, what was the catalyst that got you to leave?
So I went to community college for 2 years up there, similar to how you went to 2 years of community college, and looked at a couple different schools, looked at UMD, and then looked at St. John's, and I had a few friends that went to St. John's, and one of my great friends at the time, Dan Larson, was already there, and he called me up one day and he's like, "We have a house. I need to know by the end of this week if you're going to come to St. John's," because I was kind of on the fence about it. It was one of those where I knew I wanted to leave, but I was on, it was like, it's a big step. I'm like, I'm leaving. And so I said, yeah, I'll figure it out.
Sure.
So I said yes. And then, 6 months later, I'm at St. John's in the fall. So it was one of those where I just needed that little push. It was, you could talk big, but once push came to shove, I had to make that decision. He helped me kind of put a deadline in place where it's like, we need to know. I'm like, all right, I'm in. Right. I'll figure it out.
That's so funny because, I think when we first met, and we met at St. John's, and we both met, actually it was your second year there, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause you're older than I am. And I might point that out several times in the middle of this podcast. But I say that because as soon as I met you, I'm like, boy, you did this? Yeah, I did that. You did that? I did that. So when you talk about, what was that final thing to actually say, I am going to leave the range? Because you did 2 years of college, but it was still in the community college up there. Yeah. I actually went, and mine was football a little bit to go to college, because I didn't even think I was going to go to college. I thought I was going to go to trade school. so football was my catalyst, but then that transition to St. John's was, that was a pivotal moment for me for sure, because I not only did I play 2 years football, I wasn't going to play football anymore because I couldn't play at St. John's. I just wasn't big enough, and probably wasn't good enough either. But nonetheless, I was looking for what was that catalyst was going to be for me, and mine was like, well, I got this far, I might as well go the other way. But if I would have went straight to St. John's, I don't know if my the situation would have been as good.
A couple of years of maturity kind of to help. Yeah, I mean, if I look at my 18-year-old self, I probably would have, I'd probably helped that I took 2 years kind of to
figure it out a little bit
and figure out school a little bit. So that's definitely true. And I thought St. John's was I think if I went straight to the cities or Minneapolis, I would have probably also been struggling, where I think St. Cloud was kind of a good intermediary.
Sure.
A mid-sized town, way bigger than anything I've ever seen. So it was a good, next step. And then the next step was obviously the Twin Cities.
The Twin Cities, yeah. Well, that's awesome. So that's a little bit about kind of, geez, I'm on the wrong page even. So that talks a little bit about your childhood. We talked about range, and then St. John's, getting to St. John's. Yep. So then you get to St. John's, and you moved on to the cities after school, right? Yep. Just like all of us kind of did back then. It's like you go to the job fairs, you go figure out what you're going to do. So instead of leaping into fatherhood and kind of where that took off, the second piece of this, so that's growing up in the range. We talked about the Midwest values that I think are very similar between rangers and people in central Minnesota and growing up on farms or in a rural community. The value of that the other piece of this podcast is growth mindset. And one of the things that I think I was so impressed when I first met you is just how outgoing you were, and just how just positive you were in so many different things. And it would be very easy for somebody in your situation, and I know you alluded to it a little bit about your dad passing away when you were very young. You were adopted, growing up on the range. You had plenty of things that you could have played more of a victim lifestyle, or been more of a victim. And the one thing I mean, when I first met you, I would have thought just the opposite. Like I wouldn't have known all that. And so my question after that long pontification was, why do you think you are the way you are? Why do you think you have that disposition of a growth mindset or more optimism than pessimism?
I think, thinking back, I think to make friends, I didn't want to be Debbie Downer. I mean, it was easier to make friends when you're, a little outgoing and are easy to talk to and things like that. So I think that's just part of it. I've always kind of, especially when I was younger, I would even say, I'm like, I just positive mental attitude, it was kind of my big thing. Like,
sure.
I remember in high school, and things like that. It's like, I'm going to be the positive person, and back then it probably just meant smiling and, being happy all the time. But, as you get older, that means different things. And with different challenges in high school, you're not really faced with too much. So it was easy, definitely easy back then, but it was just kind of my mantra a little bit, was like, positive mental attitude. I remember in college, I would say it to myself. It's kind of funny, but I remember, that I'm like, that can get you a long way. I always thought positive attitude can. So,
okay. Because
it leads to a lot of other things. I think it's not, on how you act and react to things and how you handle situations, things like that.
So when things, so that's great. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing. So when you were faced with some hardship or a difficult situation, how did you, what tools did you lean on, or just,
I think
comes to mind?
And I think that's something that I've had to learn over time. I don't think I was also a person that held everything in, right? And you kind of know that from, knowing me for 30 years or whatever. And
sure.
It's, I'm not good at asking for help. I bottle up a lot of stuff. So I had to learn how to, learn how to deal with that stuff in a way that worked for me. So, because, holding it in didn't really help anybody. So I think I just, I kind of leaned on positive attitude, just kind of, and I think as I've gotten older, I've looked more at like, that growth mindset in the fact that, all right, what can I learn from this? Can I make myself stronger from this? Kind of learning, I was big on learning from my mistakes. I'm always looking for feedback, even when I was younger, like, what can I do better?
Sure.
What am I, things like that. I mean, I'm kind of getting off topic, but a lot of that stuff just kind of came back to just wanting kind of just unfiltered feedback from people was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And I think my first job out of college was big in defining that or kind of bringing that also. So
Well, so that's like you said, that's a lot, and I think there's some great examples in there. But one word that comes to mind that I think when I think of you, Jay, is humility. Like you're real quick to say, "Yep, I screwed that up," but what can I learn from it? You know what I mean? Almost going back to the Ted Lasso quote that I had a couple podcasts ago when we talk about be curious, not judgmental.
yeah,
Like instead of beating yourself up, like you said, you might hold it in, but I think you were quick to say, "Yep, my bad." You didn't mind accepting, responsibility for your actions, and then kind of laughing about it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's great on the exterior, but then if if you're building it up inside, that doesn't always work. And I think over time, what I've seen from you is that you've learned to deal with that better. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you learn behaviors and things that you can use to express those feelings or to deal with those feelings. I think so.
Yeah.
I think I was good at it when I was younger, and I think I was challenged with it for a period of time, and then now I've gotten older, I think I'm better with it again, kind of. So
Right.
which is kind of weird, but I think when I was younger, it was little things, so it was easy to get over. And then you go through a lot of big life things, and you learn how to cope and to deal and things like that with those in different ways. So as you mature, obviously, it just gets hopefully you're building tools that you can use in situations. So.
Yeah. Well, and so we talk about that from the just following the format that we're talking about. So youth growing up in the range, dealing with some hardship of the family and your dad passing away, or not passing away, but I mean,
Yeah.
that, passing, dying at a very young age.
Yeah,
You were 6.
yeah, I was 6.
You were 6, and mom, like you said, mom with 3 kids, 4th coming down the road. All that to, getting to St. John's and getting these wins, finding that new job, and then to the point where we are now, where you start a new family. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, as I look back on things too, I mean, I was raised by a single mom who had 3, other kids. I was the oldest, and I have a lot of respect for her and how she did it. She was able to raise 3 kids all by herself.
And many animals.
And she was always at my events. She was always there. And to be a single, and being a parent with kids and having 2 parents, I'm like, that's impossible now, to be able to get to everything and do all that stuff. So
right.
I remember we'd go to a Twins game and she just busted out like a book to read while we were at the Twins game, but she wanted to make sure I got to a Twins game. So it was
really,
yeah. So just little things
awesome.
like that. Or she
Grandma Sue, right?
Yeah, exactly. So and that's one of the things I think carried into me being a father is that like just how much being present just meant, right? Like
sure.
I think people remember if their parents were watching them growing up or if they weren't,
Right.
either way. And I have positive memories about my mom being there at a lot of stuff. And so then, with that, I try to show up for my kids the same way. I coached and have done stuff like that too, to get more involved, which
Sure.
has been a big positive for me, I guess, as far as learning more about them and getting that one-on-one time with them, being, knowing who their friends are, things like that. I think it's been that's helped quite a bit, or been a big positive in my adult life, I guess, too. So,
okay. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So your first kid.
Yeah. So I had Madison in 1999. That was from a previous relationship, not from my current wife. So, when we had her, we broke up shortly after that, and I moved in with Paul and his brother Jeff, and it was 3 men and a baby.
Paul, me here, yeah, 3 men and a baby, literally straight out of the movie. Yeah,
we had 3 men and a baby in an apartment, and so for the next 8 months or whatever it was, we were living together with this little 8-month-old to 1-year-old, and having fun with her. I mean, it was a lot of fun, and we were. Me and Madison were just, we hunkered down on a mattress in the dining room, and it's one of those things where, again, kind of the positivity, but it's like, you make the best of the situation, right? I mean,
well, and a little bit of the bliss of like, if you don't know any different, you know what I mean? You're like, this is what we do. All right, roll up the sleeves, let's go.
Yeah.
And I think that's, a little bit of, maybe it's a little bit of the range, maybe it's your growth mindset. I don't know what it is, but a combination perhaps.
Yeah.
But to your point, it was me, my brother Jeff, and then you, and then little Madison.
Yeah.
I still remember, like, literally, like the baby bottles are on the counter washed and all put together. And, we have I think maybe a 12-pack of beer in the fridge. You know what I mean?
Jeff's making scrapple.
Yeah, Jeff's making scrap on the stovetop.
Yeah.
But I remember those days though, because I remember leaving early, going to work, and just seeing you and Madison sleep in there, and just all the different things that you did just to make sure that she had the best of everything.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it changes your life, right? And even though my situation was unique, it's still, I mean, it was just amazing. I love that time. It's just, one, it's a good story now, but two, just that time in life was just kind of kind of winging it, figuring things out again.
Sure.
So, and it worked out pretty fine. She's a pretty good kid, adult.
Yeah, I mean, kid now, she's
23.
23 and just recently engaged, right?
Graduated college, engaged, just and
graduated from college, engaged
and looking to buy a house. So
looking to buy a house. All these big decisions now, right?
Yeah, which don't feel that far back for me. I mean, it's like I felt like I just did that stuff and it was 20 plus years ago.
It's so funny because we talk about this, and as I hear this story and kind of relive some of this in my head, I think that was like yesterday. Like that wasn't long ago. I was still, we were still in college. We were just moving, to where we are now. It's interesting perspective. Yeah. And so now newly engaged to a great guy, Josh Williams.
Great guy. Everybody loves him in the family. So
absolutely,
that's awesome. Yeah, it's exciting times.
So okay, so you have Madison, and then that you're doing everything you can. You're a single dad, with Jenny and her family, and that's actually I'd love for you to just chat a little bit about that. I mean, coming full circle, so breaking up, having Madison, but yet doing what's right for Madison, obviously. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing, even though we weren't together, the big thing we did is we put Madison first, and so we didn't, because you go through obviously the child custody and all that kind of stuff, and we didn't make it an ugly, drawn out thing. We talked about it. We put her first. We decided to, I had joint physical and legal custody. So I had her 50% and Jenny had her 50%. And, we lived 5 miles from each other. So it was just easy, easy to get back and forth. And she went to school and lived at Jenny's when she got older, but I'd still see her all the time. But it was just, it takes a village kind of attitude, right? So we had Jenny and Sean and me and Shannon, but then she had so many sets of grandparents, and so she had so many people that were looking out for her or loved her and wanted to be part of her life. So I always say Christmases she had it made for a while there when she was the only grandchild. So, but she had so many people that were there for her, and we'd go to, me, Jenny, Sean, and Shannon, we'd go to her conferences together. We'd go to all her events together, and this, but teachers would be like, we've never seen this. Like, this is very rare to happen. We're 4 parents walking into the third grade talking
to each other too. Yeah. It's not like they're over here, you're over here either. You know what I mean? Just the opposite when you say.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. We were a team. We came in as a team. So it was I mean, a lot of people were impressed by that or thought that was pretty special. I think we got a lot of comments on that every year. So.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up too, because it's not only does it teach our kids and the Madison, obviously, the power of not getting spiteful, not playing what was me, but literally rolling up the sleeves and coming together as a group, to the point now where every birthday, every Christmas, like the two families get together and celebrate it together.
We celebrate Christmas together every year. We've been on vacations together. I mean, with Paul and his family. I mean, their whole families come down with us to Florida and spent time. I mean, I was in their wedding. I mean, in Jenny and Sean's wedding. So you couldn't ask for a better situation, honestly. And Madison saw what being a positive role model was, just seeing, a lot of kids don't see that in those type of situations. They see the worst. And so I think she grew up, even though it was a non-traditional environment, she grew up seeing the positive of what that could be. And I don't think she's had any, nothing negative that's come out of that. I think it's just been a positive experience for her. And, as an adult, I think she's she's realizes what she has and things like that too. So
and like you said earlier, her and Josh are just have the world in front of them. They're so, but I think it's because of that hard work and a little bit of how you've shown up with that growth mindset of just like, well, we did this, but is it perfect? Well, not yet, the
Right.
power of yet, that whole idea of just saying that, what are the things I can control versus the things that I can't control?
Yep.
Because it would have been so easy for you at that time. It would have been so easy for even Jenny or anybody else to really kind of get into that fixed mindset. This is the way it's got to be. I want, this, and that's where it just, we could see it go the opposite way.
Yeah.
To your point, when teachers and the schools are saying, God, we just don't see this.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy to go to that negative side, that fixed mindset. And I guess one of the things I've been so inspired by you over the years is just how you've shown your humility and say, all right, what can I do? What can I control versus what can I not control? And you just stepped up there, and it was just so cool to see.
Yeah, it was an exciting time. Definitely, it was definitely a learning experience too. It was, it's not what you drop when you're when you're younger, and but nothing ever is, right. Nothing ever comes out how you draw it up. So it was, it's amazing, and I wouldn't trade that for anything else right now.
Yeah. So I love that story. But then we, come full circle. So you meet Shannon. Obviously, well, not just meet Shannon. I mean, you literally through once again, through the power of me setting you up. And yeah, I'm just kidding. But obviously I was dating Jess, and then you met Shannon, and then you and Shannon had
2 kids.
Yeah.
So Brady, who is 21. No, God, 21, 19. Just acts like he's 21. And then Jordan, who is just about 15. So yeah, we got married and bought a townhouse for a couple of years, and then decided to move down to Rosemount, just a few miles away here from you guys. And been here 20 years now. 2000, 20 years exactly. So, but yeah, Brady and Jordan, and the relationship that they have with their older sister too is great. And as they have all 3 of them have strong relationships with each other too. So but yeah, just kind of raising them, and raising a boy is definitely a little different than raising a girl. And but yeah, it's been a blast having both of them be so involved in sports, and good students. I mean, you want, I've always been of the thing, I want my kids to do better than I did, kind of, and or learn from my mistakes. So I'm not preachy, but I also like to, I don't know, hold them accountable, and let them make mistakes too. I probably don't do enough of that. I kind of maybe when they were younger coddled them a little too much, right?
Sure.
And a little overprotective. But now that they're getting older, I kind of want to give them a little more free will, and not try to jump in and help on everything. So
yeah. Let them kind of do the the failures, or have the failure, so to speak, that you had maybe, or that we had when we were younger.
Yeah,
that whole idea. What's your favorite part about being a father?
That's a good question, I guess. If I had to narrow it down to something, I guess just spending that time with my kids, having that one-on-one time with each of them separately, and just the relationships that we built with each other. I mean, it's just, I didn't have a father growing up, so I didn't really, and not that means anything, I guess, but I just knew that, all I could do is be there and ask questions, and be there for them is kind of my big thing. But I love the quality time. I'm big about just being present in the moment too. Like, if we're doing something together, put down the phone, have a conversation. Or if we're in the car, kids always seem to be chatty in the car. So on the car rides, just let them, spill their guts out and talk. So I think it's those moments more than anything, is just, getting to know them, especially as they get older, as people and who they are, right? Outside of that kid zone. So
Eckhart totally be more present in the now, that whole idea of being present in the now. And it sounds, from what I understand, it sounds like you might have learned that from your mom. Like, even though she wasn't a fan of twins, she would take you there, and she might be reading her book, but she at least was, she understood that the value of coming to all your sporting events and all of that.
And having me try things. Like, I tried karate. I walked in one day and I walked out the same day, and it's like, well, you tried it, So
we had a similar experience with our kids.
So I tried to expose my kids to everything, and if they grasp onto what they love, and they ended up, they each have a couple of sports and hobbies that they like. So it's, it's all about exposure, and all we can do is expose them to things, and see what see what sticks with them and what they enjoy. So
you don't think you should push one agenda on your kids and just try to be that? I've done that, and guess what, that doesn't work. That doesn't work either. So being more present with your kids,
just having fun with them. I mean, I'm kind of I don't know, kid at heart. I like to have fun, so I mess around with them, and
Sure.
just kind of a big kid at heart myself. So I think they get a kick out of that too.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So, and then so we talked about, the early days on the range. We talked about the growth mindset and how you kind of show up. What are you excited about for the next 5 years?
uh, to see where they go, honestly, and see what they do. I mean, with one starting their career, one first year freshman in college, and one freshman in high school, it'll be interesting to see where they're all sitting in 5 years and how they grow and what careers they choose, or what decisions they make. I think that'll be fun. For myself, it'll be learning how to be home and not have kids around eventually.
Right.
So
Soon
empty
to be. I
nesting.
mean, you're not that far away, right? With
Right.
Jordan. I mean, you have two of them out of the house now,
Yeah.
right?
So that empty nester thing, and finding hobbies, finding things to, that me and Shannon can do and enjoy together, and finding things to fill my time. Because be honest, the kids, doing so much stuff with them, it takes, you kind of are living not through them, but you're basically they're driving a lot of the stuff with their activities in your life. So
Yeah.
it's going to go from like that to twiddling our thumbs.
It's funny because Jordan's not there yet as far as driving, but now having both my kids, having their license, it's a little bit kind of that natural transition where all of a sudden, yeah, they might, sleep here and live here, but they're gone
They're
a
gone.
lot,
Yeah.
whether it's early to practice or wherever it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
once Brady has a license, you see him at night, and that's about it. So,
right.
yeah.
So now you're still seeing Jordan, but that'll slowly,
Yeah.
Okay. So to see where they go and how they,
Yeah. And then, figure out my career, what I want to do, and keep doing what I'm doing, but what can I do to get better? I'm kind of a, at work, I'm always looking for new challenges and things like that. So I also look at it like, well, I'll have more time. I won't have all these commitments that, after work, where I can maybe invest time into some education or some things to grow my skill set, or
Sure.
get into some different things. So gotta keep the mind going. So
Awesome. Well, I think I would be remiss to say, so first of all, thank you for all of that. I mean, that, we kind of opened a vein a little bit, talked about some really cool things and some great stories. The last thing I'd like to finish with is just your favorite. Now, this is a little bit of a PG rated podcast, but your favorite story of you and I at St. John's.
Oh my.
That was a total that I just totally pulled that out of my back pocket. Didn't have planned on that, but
Yeah.
so I have one, and
Gosh.
but go ahead. I asked you the question.
First. I gotta think.
All right, so mine would definitely be pine stock. Pine stock
That was
is
exactly what I said.
you're talking about. Was it Chubby's or was it?
Yeah,
Yeah. So Jay and I both worked at the law play at that during that particular time, and this is me opening up a little bit to the crowd here, or to the listening audience that I don't normally do. But we were both at St. John's, and it's one of my favorite stories because I think we both had to work that afternoon or that evening or something at the law. But we had the whole morning where we could go out. And St. John's, this pine stock was kind of their what's the equivalent, like Woodstock?
Yeah, like a big concert on an island, basically, outdoor concert.
And this year, I think it was Big Head Todd the Monsters, and a couple cool bands out on Lake Saget, out by Lake Watap.
Yep.
So cool area, outdoors, everything like that. We're hanging out, and the party house that you lived at, because we couldn't have fraternities at a private college, was I think it was Chubby's, and then Driftwood and all these different houses. Well, a bunch of the guys would take pitchers of beer and go out the upstairs windows onto the roof and just sit up there and have a beer. And I think you and I were up there. Somebody brought a bicycle up there. I didn't ride it. Did you try to ride the bike? That wasn't you or I. So we were good that way. What's that?
I have limits.
Yeah. We're so much fun. But anyway, we're up there just casually, very safely having a cup of beer. And I remember it was also small town St. Joe, and my whole family lived around this cul-de-sac. And my mom's brother, Chuck Muskie, literally lived right next to this place. And he had his 3 kids, Richard, Christina, and Marie. Literally, we pulling around, like walking in a red Flyer wagon. And you and I are sitting out on the roof, and they're like, "Isn't that cousin Paul up there?" Because I used to babysit them just in that house. And long story short, yep, I waved at him and kind of chuckled, whatever. Come down off the roof. We end up going to work. The next day was Mother's Day. We go to Mother's Day at Grandpa Muskie's, and Grandpa Muskie doesn't say a word to anything, just walks up, hits me on the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, good to see you got off that roof all right." So it sounds like it was a major conversation. And I remember that was you and I, and that was a fun day. Yeah, for sure.
That's funny. I was going the same direction with Pine Stock. So
did you have a different story on it?
No, that was the roof one was the one. Yeah. Kind of a big one.
Kind of a big one.
Yeah.
Make some better decisions.
I remember we went to a lot of concerts in
that's
college. I have a lot of memories of those. We always would go down to the cities with a group and hit these different concert venues, and those are the safe stories that I can say.
good safe stories.
Yeah.
Well, man, thank you for joining the podcast, and it was a short one, but I appreciate you, and I appreciate our friendship for sure, and it's great to have not only relatives that you enjoy hanging out with. It's even better that you're sitting across the table on Thanksgiving from one of your best friends. So I appreciate our friendship, buddy.
Me too. Thank you.
All right, man.
All right.
Awesome. I'm going to shake her hand, and then I'm going to shut this down. So take care.